Okay. Okay, so here we are doing another live stream on YouTube. Okay. And I'm hearing myself feedback. Okay. Okay, I guess I had to turn off the YouTube sound. Anyway, started in my scene. And of course, as I'm starting, I gotta change the battery on my touch controller. Boom, 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 boom. Great start. Thankfully, I always have them ready. Oh, shit. Okay, wait. Gotta restart because my controller was giving me some issues. You see, Lee is joining us. He's just grabbing some coffee. So this is kind of a messy start, but hey, who cares? It's a live stream. Okay. Let's just wait for this new scene to load. And this is great. Now it's the other touch controller. I should do this before I start.
Dan ga even naar chat.
Ik ben even bezig. Yeah, that was my girlfriend. And so I think nobody is bothering us now. Let me check some settings. And okay. So I'm just gonna start. I'll see if anybody is gonna add the voice chat on the Discord. It's in the chat panel. There's a link there. Anyway, so I had to replace the batteries on my controllers because these things eat batteries. First, I'm gonna change the preset to this. It's not necessarily the most beautiful, but it gives me the most outside reference. Speaking about reference, I need a reference image. So if you have a reference image, just put it in your documents / gravitysketch reference images folder, I believe it's called, and then you'll find it and you can open it and drag it into your scene like this. This is a little illustration by the great Moebius, an artist that I really love for his colorful sci-fi style. If you don't know him, then, I mean, you're missing out. Okay, so this is kind of a vehicle with some dudes inside. I'm gonna try to do the vehicle and then add the dudes. I'm gonna try to do this within an hour. Not sure if I'm gonna be able to do it, but let's see. First of all, I'll need symmetry. And I'll just take brush, black brush. You know what? I'll give it a color. And kind of what I usually do to set my scale is just drag in one of these dummies. And then I'll just kind of figure out how big these alien dudes would be. Something like this. Doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, delete that. I think I want this reference image to be on its own layer, so I'll create a new layer for the sketch. And I'm just gonna basically, for scale, kind of trace this. Let me see. Yeah, never mind that scale. I'm just gonna, I want it to be a little bigger, so I'm just gonna do it like this. Oh, this is a little hard to see. Just get a rough outline. I haven't really done it like this before. This is kind of all I need for now. And I like to really scale up that image. Let me quickly check. My settings are all good. Yeah. And if there's anything wrong with the audio, please let me know. I'll try to check the chat as much as I can. Okay, so this is a simple outline just for scale. I want to add another layer where I'm actually going to do the geometry, so let me lock these. So what I will start with this is a little cube. Of course, turn on the sub D right there. Just create the cube, and this is kind of the way I start a lot of the time. I'll make it yellow, like that vehicle is. So just these two cubes in symmetry mode, go into edit mode, delete this face, and then connect these vertices. So this is kind of the basic start for a lot of this stuff. So I'll be blocking out the shape first, kind of based on that outline that I just created. Keep it very simple. It's probably kind of shaped like this. Well, at least at the end there are two wheels here in the back and one wheel in the front. So it's probably kind of sort of V-shaped, but I think we have some freedom there. Yeah, okay, let me see if I want to have this separate part as a separate model right away. No, let me just take this and extrude it. Go down like this. Now the top part is going to be open, so I'm just going to delete this face already. Going to add in the wheels, I think, for now. So you might think that I want to use a donut shape for that, but I don't, because it gives me kind of the it doesn't really give me the number of vertices, or should I say control points, that I like. At least I think. Let me see what this looks like when it's smoothed out. Actually, it's not too bad. But since these tires are a little less round and a little more flat, I think I'm going to go for just a cube. although the donut does work nice as a reference just for the rounding of the shape. So I'll just put it there, and I'll put a subdivision level on it. And so this is just for me to kind of build around. Quickly checking something. Lee is asking, what are your thoughts for people joining in audio? Just ask questions or chat, whatever you want. It's, I mean, for me, this whole thing is an experiment. And Lee says the audio is good. You don't have to join in the audio. This is fine as well. And I'll try to check the chat as much as I can. But if you want to join and ask questions, that's whatever you want. So I'm going to use this for that little wheel for reference. Let me see if the size is right. Well, I'm going to say it's okay for now. And then you kind of follow that edge flow there. Of course, this whole model is going to have a subdivision applied to it. But now I'm just kind of blocking out the shape. And then here, this is one of those little tricks. Extrude and make sure you delete these both faces so these vertices can attach. Something like this. Now, when I add a subdivision level, of course, we're going to get that same donut shape. So one of the things you can do is to select an entire edge loop, or I don't know how you say it, a face loop, if that's a word. You can select this button and you can just extrude this whole thing.
Hey, good morning.
Hey, good morning. Is that Lee?
It is.
Hey, man. How you doing?
Oh, pretty good. Pretty good. Yourself?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. Yeah. So this is fun. This is kind of an experiment to see how this is going. Yeah. So I was just kind of explaining how I'm not using this donut shape, because as you can see, if I go in edit mode, and with this one I have a whole bunch of control points, and for this one I have way less. So this is much better. So Lee, are you using gravitysketch at the moment?
I use it mostly just for like playing around right now, but not currently like work or anything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So mostly just trying to get to learn it.
Yeah.
But yeah, use Adobe Medium a little bit as well.
Oh yeah, yeah. Adobe Medium is cool. Yeah, I've used that quite a bit in the beginning, but for me, I really needed to because I also needed to use it for work, and like UVs is so important for me. And Oculus Medium and UVs, it's kind of yeah, it was kind of hard. I had to, you can do like basic models and then retopologize and then do UVs, but I just turned out I usually just stuck with Google Blocks for that. But then, of course, when gravitysketch came, that was much. I liked it much better, to be honest.
Yeah, I think the biggest problem in VR for me right now is just my system isn't the best, so it makes it pretty challenging.
Yeah, but is it good enough for Oculus Medium?
Yeah, it is only up to a certain level, and then it'll have a hard time exporting, and then just crash if it doesn't feel like it wants to.
Oh
do
yeah, yeah, that can be annoying and can really mess up your workflow and stuff. That's not the most fun.
Yeah, so you end up doing like bits and chunks of pieces, which really doesn't work so well when you're trying to do an overall project.
Yeah, especially when you're working in VR. I mean, you kind of want to stay in VR for as long as you can. Just going in and out is like, for me, it's like once I'm in VR, it's great, and I'm I'm focused, but then sometimes like going out and getting distracted with other things outside of VR. Yeah, it's weird how that works. I'm having a little issue with my menu. It's not attached to my. What's going on?
Hi guys,
Hey, who's there?
Vivo.
Hey, man. Yeah, I'm having a little issue with my. I don't know why. What am I doing wrong? I want this menu to get stuck to my hand, but it's not doing that. What am I missing here? Okay, let me just continue. So it's just making this front wheel, and as I explained, I don't use the donut shape for that, but I've used just a cube and kind of extruded it around an existing donut, which I used for scale.
And because you're not super worried about like that perfect circle.
No, not really, because it's first of all, you know, a sketch like this, it isn't that perfect, and it's always kind of relative. It's always like, you know, how big are you going to see the model, and you know, there's no such thing as perfection. If you can zoom in endlessly, then it's never going to be perfect. But you know, if we get a model like this, then I think this is good enough, and I can always tweak it, of course, and actually maybe like this might be need a little tweaking there.
So now this you did a Mobius sketch. Is this going into one of your projects, or is this just kind of for like fan art fun?
Yeah, this is kind of just for fun. I was doing some other stuff, work related, where I was working with reference material, and since like the tutorials and the live stream stuff so far had just been me kind of freeballing, kind of improvising, I thought it was good to kind of challenge myself and do one of these with a reference image and give myself like I don't know, like an hour to do this. It's always I had to, like yesterday I had to do some illustration, actually just a 2D illustration, but I decided to do it in gravitysketch, and it was a donkey. And for me, like things like that, like horses and stuff, is super hard because it's very hard for me. I mean, these are hard shapes.
Yeah.
So I kind of challenged myself, but it worked out pretty well because I had some good reference material. So that's so I was kind of pleased with that, and then I found this little Mobius image, and I thought this was that this would be a good one for sub D, because it's just like a relatively simple shape, but you got to get the proportions just right. And it's yeah, I thought it was doable.
What level of finish are you going to do? So like the paint, the purple paint chips on the side, is that something you do in VR, or is that just post Photoshop work?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think that I wouldn't put that in 3D. I think that like that thickness is enough that I would do it in Substance Painter. So
Substance, right? Yeah.
yeah, I don't think I'll get around to that in this stream, but if I decide to do that, I'll add it. But it's just, yeah, it's really one of those things that you can very easily just mask it away in Substance Painter, add the height and the color to that same mask, and that kind of how do you say it? You know what I mean? Like that
Yeah.
old metal look. That's really
Yeah.
something that like Substance Painter is really good at. And of course, it's not going to be like the same look. It's not going to be an illustrated look with like an outline. It's going to be like more of a, you know, realistic version. So it's always fun to see how far I can give it my own twist. Then.
Cool.
Yeah. So I messed up just now because I had this wheel here and I deleted a bunch of vertices and then moved it to the middle. So now it's you know, it's in symmetry mode. And then I copied that wheel, but now it doesn't have the same symmetry. I'm kind of not totally sure. See, now the symmetry is in the model itself. So maybe I have to undo. No, if I undo the mirroring, I lose half. Wait, yeah, I'm still sometimes struggling a bit with this. I think yeah, this is the way to do it. So I undid that global symmetry, then I got the both halves are both editable, and then I turned on mirrored in the model, and then I have mirroring going on again. So yeah, still something that I'm sometimes a little bit lost, but usually with these gravitysketch interface, it does make sense, but I'm just thinking in the weird way. Okay, you need to turn on the subdivision level again, and of course these wheels are not as they're little, and this needs to come in. They're gonna add multi-selection, or like how do you say, additive selection, which would be really helpful because now I can't really I can't really just select a couple of vertices and then add a selection to that. But they said they were going to add that, so that's going to be a great and much needed feature. So
Yeah, 'cause you can't select edge loops right now, can you?
well, you can select edge loops. Yeah, you have this button for that. That's like
Oh yeah, yeah, okay.
wait, my menu is a little messed up. That's this button. So there you can select like edge loops and also like, well, face loops, I think you would call them. So that's there. But you know what I would like is just to be able to select a vertex and then add to that selection. But now you have to select them all at the same time, and then because your brush is a sphere, sometimes it's hard. But I think this is gonna work. Again, I'm not gonna do it perfectly. First, just get those basic shapes in place. So that little golden thing in the middle of the wheel, kind of a gold feeling to it. And as you're working with these subdivision levels, at least I found that at a certain point you really get some intuition of how to build certain geometries. At first it was much harder for me, but now I'm already seeing a button like that. I'm like, oh yeah, I just have to create a sphere. And by the way, never ever use a sphere like from this, because again, this gives you way too much vertices, and that's not handy. Much better is just to create a cube and then put two subdivision levels on it, and then you can just it's much better to edit it. So for that thing in a wheel, I would just say, create an edge loop like there. Maybe extrude this a little bit and just delete those. Whoops. Yeah, so this would be, how do you call it, the center of the rim?
Yeah, hubcap maybe.
Hubcap, yeah, that's I'm still. And the same goes for if I want to create a circle, I'll just use a plane and add. I'm just might Google how to reattach that menu to my hand, because somehow it got unattached. I have no idea why. That's never happened before. So just add two subdivision levels, and then you can just.
Sorry, to make that flat on the back, you just deleted vertices?
This shape that I just created.
Yeah, the flat on the back of the hubcap there. I missed that.
Oh yeah, yeah. You just delete those vertices, and then because they're not connecting to vertices behind that, it just ends there, and then it automatically just it's
Those empty faces behind it.
yeah, there's empty faces behind it, definitely. And because you can't see that in gravitysketch, you always have to kind of be mindful what side you started modeling from, because obviously when you open it up in Unity, you're going to have backface culling, you're going to have those inverted those normals just from one side. It's going to be invisible from the other side. So when I start to make something, for example, with a plane, and I make it, I got to make sure that this is the side I'm viewing it from, because this side is going to be it's going to be see-through in Unity. It's one of the reasons that it can be helpful to use cubes, because cubes are just closed shapes, and you'll always know what they're going to look like.
I'm assuming you check all your normals in what do you use, 3ds Max?
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's one of the first things I always have to check. So I just turn on backface culling, and then and there's some other ways to check it, but that's how I check it. And then you can immediately see what's wrong. But yeah, usually now I kind of make sure I do that from the get-go, and keep in mind how I started modeling things in gravitysketch. But one of the things that does happen is when you mirror things, I'm not sure if it's consistent, if it always happens, but a lot of times when you're mirroring things, the other side has inverted normals. So that's still something that's, I don't know if they can fix that. So like that flattening out of that hubcap, the same goes with this. So I have this little thing like here, because when I turn on those subdivision levels, the ending is wrong. So you can just delete those faces, and then it ends. It doesn't do the smoothing on the tops, if that makes sense. So this is kind of how you create little tubes and stuff. Well, again, this is small stuff, so this doesn't have to be perfect.
I'm not sure. That's called like boundary edges, maybe?
Oh yeah, maybe. Yeah, there's a lot of this terminology I'm not even that familiar with, but if you want to have it,
Join the club.
hey, who's there?
Still Zibo.
Hey, Zibo. So this is fun. So now we're there are 3 people in the voice chat. I'm not sure. I can't. I'm not constantly
3.
checking it.
Including you.
Yeah. I always include myself. That's
That's a good thing.
Uh-huh. So Zibo, you're using gravitysketch as well, or?
Well, not yet. I just I use Oculus Medium and Tiltbrush, but I'm not familiar at all with the terminology. So when you guys talk about things like divide and that sort of stuff, I still gotta learn that stuff. So.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, there's a lot of.
And it's in English, and being a Dutch guy.
Yeah.
Not my native language, so.
No, for me it's always you got to do that extra translation in your head.
Yeah.
No, the cool thing about, of course, the terminology for 3D stuff is that I learned it in English, so there's not even I wouldn't even know how to call it what it is in Dutch. But of course, a lot of other words, yeah. I mean, I'm struggling all the time.
And
Yeah.
And the best place to learn it is just start doing like tutorials in like a 3D application, like even Blender or something like that, because then you'd be forced to understand all those terms.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, and that's always kind of the thing with language. I think if you just use it and do it, and mess up, and don't be afraid to mess up, then people will correct you or tell you like, no, this is that's what it's called. So there's so much terminology going on in 3D and games that and there's even a lot of stuff that people have different words for. So
yeah,
that's I'm still kind of baffled why this menu is not sticking to my left hand, but anyway. Okay, now I've added subdivision levels to this main shape. And one of the things that I'm thinking about is, do I need to, oh yeah, I locked that layer. So that's my first layer. I think I need it a little bigger. So like these headlights, do I want it to be part of this shape, or do I want it to be separate? I try to keep it part of the main shape as much as I can. So all the vertices are kind of connected. But I'm not sure if it's gonna work this time. So I'll need an edge loop here, because of course here there should be more of a line. And usually gravitysketch is pretty good at creating the edge loops where they should be. So just creating an edge loop here will automatically create a loop around. And I might have to check my chat because I'm hearing some notifications. I haven't really used Discord before this, so I'm also.
That was just muting and unmuting.
Yeah.
Oh really? Oh, I'm not. I don't use it that often, so. I'll
put your Discord chat as an overlay in GravitySketch.
Yeah, I was looking at that, but I could what I could do is just show the. Yeah, I'm not sure if that's gonna work actually. I mean, just put it in the screen. You mean? For me, it doesn't really change anything because I can't see it. I don't know. I'll look into it later. For now, I'll just
Yeah, it's okay.
keep it like this. I also just like installed Streamlabs, and there's so much handy stuff, but there's also like so many options.
Yep.
Which is of course, this is the whole thing that a lot of people I feel like in 3D kind of get turned off. They open the software and there's like all these things to do.
Yeah.
But honestly,
I opened Blender for the first time like yesterday and closed immediately.
no, I can totally understand. But I'll tell you, like I've used like 3ds Max, which is kind of my basic software, 3D software. I think that I might know 10% of 3ds Max. There's so much to learn that what I usually my philosophy is kind of not try to learn anything, but just try to create, work on projects and learn what you need to know for that project, and then gradually build.
Yeah.
Because
I've worked with Photoshop for like 20 years now.
Oh yeah.
I started with the version 5, I think.
Okay.
5.5. And now I'm switching to the products of Affinity because of the price.
Okay. Oh,
And,
I'm not too familiar with those, but.
And nice programs.
Yeah, Affinity Design is basically Adobe Illustrator, and Affinity Photo is basically Photoshop. But you pay 50 euros for each program, and then it's yours forever. No monthly subscription or whatever.
And do you get updates or?
Yeah, constantly. Yeah.
Oh wow,
that's. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but like in Photoshop, I noticed it's just getting kind of worse and worse. Like with my pen tablet.
I don't know about the tablets, but yeah, I find the whole subscription model is, it's for me it's too much to pay. So
yeah.
Yeah, what I kind of liked, I mean, subscription models are becoming much more and more the norm. But what Substance had, I'm not even sure if it's still there, but it's like rent to buy. So you would have a subscription, and then you would pay your subscription until you've paid a certain amount, and from that point on, you just own the software. But they don't give you all the updates. But of course, if it's, I think for me, Substance Painter has been such a game changer, and they do so many updates that I'm willing to pay that. But Affinity, that sounds that sounds like
Yeah, I think they still
interesting.
have a discount, so you pay like
It's
30.
50% off.
Yeah.
And
It's
it's
very cheap right now.
and it's basically the same as Photoshop.
Well, yeah, you have those typical things in Adobe Illustrator which Affinity Designer doesn't have, and vice versa. And yeah, I think
Really good. It's just it's hard when you're so used to Photoshop or Illustrator to make that switch.
Oh yeah,
for me it's just a financial question. So
yeah.
Yeah, but it's hard to make a
There you go.
switch. I've been thinking about going for Blender because Blender, like it's great software and it's free. It's still free, right?
Yeah, still, it will always be free. Yeah.
I mean that's
All-round
amazing.
program.
Yeah, it's amazing. I believe you can even do like video editing and stuff like that in Blender. But as Lee said, once you start with a certain software, it's almost like your brain kind of gets hardwired to that software, and then you get used to a certain way, and your brain is like, oh, this is the best way. This is why you have people discussing various softwares online, but the truth is there are many different ways to do it.
Yeah. But I think it's the best way to learn new software is not think about the terminology, like you said, and just dive into it and try to make the things you want to make.
Yeah, absolutely. I really believe in kind of that project-based learning. Whenever I remember, like a very long time ago, I wasn't really into digital media, and I was trying to learn Photoshop because I was like, oh, this is good software for me to learn.
Yeah.
And I would just sit down and try to learn the hotkeys and stuff like that. But of course, it didn't stick because I wasn't using it. And only when I got a job like in 3D where I had to use a lot of Photoshop, it took me a week to learn most of the basic hotkeys because I was using them like 50 times a day. And this is really, this is really how most people learn, I think.
Yeah.
Well, it's very true. I can only learn really like by doing step by step or being forced to do something, like you said, at a job or.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very interesting. They have these new like type of schools. I mean, they're mostly just in Silicon Valley, where it's still kind of for rich kids, but it's all project-based learning. So they don't go sit around and just learn information for the sake of it, but they go out and make something, and everything they need to learn on the way is just what they learn. So if they need some math, maybe they need to do some geography, and like the project could be, let's make a rocket, or let's create I don't know, an idea for a submarine or whatever. And then along the way you learn about biology, you learn about other languages.
I think it's a good approach.
Yeah, I mean that's really
It would do something similar in British Columbia. It's called inquiry-based learning. So they kind of learn by asking their own questions.
yeah. Yeah, that sounds similar. That's and then also this information is kind of attached to something. It's kind of integrated into other knowledge. And I've always felt like, for example, learning certain years, like when was the French Revolution or when was this, it would never stick in my brain because it's just like free floating bits of information that were not attached to anything. So my brain just would not.
No relevance to.
No, exactly. It would not store that information. Whoops. Oh, no, I need to.
So, Dirk, do you then build environments for VR?
Yeah, most of my work now is working in VR, and then kind of doing kind of level design and creating environments. Yeah, I still do some other stuff. There's a kind of a game that I'm kind of involved in. It's kind of a longer and more personal project, but yeah, I really try to gear most of my work towards VR because that's really kind of my passion. Um, and it's really what when I just had my. Oh wait, let me see what I'm doing here. This is not good. When I just had my Oculus Rift, um, at first I thought, oh man, I'm gonna play all these games. But I didn't really do that because I realized, oh, I'm not really a gamer. I mean, I love games, but I don't really spend like hours and hours playing games, and I wasn't suddenly going to do that now I had VR. So for actually the first couple of months that my Oculus Rift was kind of not doing very much, and then I kind of threw. Do you know Nam? Maybe you follow him on
Yeah.
Twitter as well. So I worked with him. He actually lives in the same town as I do, and through him I really got inspired to get into blocks and kind of in level building for VR in VR, and that's when I really started to use the Rift again. So that was a kind of an eye opener for me. That at first I thought it was gonna, do all these experience, and I do games, I play games, but like most of my hours are spent creating in VR because that's ultimately that's my passion.
Oh, you mean Naam? Also a
Bas,
Dutch guy.
yeah, he's called Bastiaan Hoijmaier. We both live in Groningen, and we already worked together on like Unity projects before, and we kind of both got introduced to VR at the same time.
He
So
uses Google Blocks a lot, right?
yeah, he's a big Google Blocks fan, and
Yeah.
I actually, he because I kind of switched over to gravitysketch, but he's a little hesitant because and there's a truth to this that you have much more possibility to make it much more complex, and his style is really
Low poly.
Yeah,
he's got a very low poly, very
I
specific,
see what you mean. Yeah.
and you gotta really resist the temptation to put in too much detail, and so that was interesting to me.
Yeah, that could change your style and the feel and look
Yeah,
overall.
absolutely, and so that the style is really connected to the tool you're using, and I mean that's of course true in traditional media, um, but for this type of digital media, this is also the case. So yeah, that was fun.
When I check my own work, I'm all over the place.
Oh yeah,
With
no, look,
a lot of different styles like tattoo design and etc.
I have look. I have the same feeling about my art. But when other people look at my art, they're like, "Oh no, you have a consistent style." But when I look at it, I'm like, "No, it's all over the place." So
Yeah, yeah.
it's also kind of like in the eye of the beholder. It's a funny thing. But yeah, I agree. I mean, there are artists that I really admire, but they do a very specific thing, and that's also very good, but it's just not something that would keep me interested for
Yeah.
long.
Well, sometimes I envy them because they know what they like and what they're doing, and I still feel like I'm having a hard time understanding what I like.
Oh yeah, no, I absolutely get that feeling. There's sometimes this sense where I even got this criticism when I went to art school. My teachers were like, come on, man, pick a thing. Uh, you know, but this was, I mean, that would just like zap my motivation if I would just have to pick one thing, and then Especially in that period, there was always like this new thing, and the new thing is always. I mean, there's this whole meme about it. You know, the guy with his girlfriend looking back over his shoulder to this other thing. It's such a universal thing where people the new thing. I think the trick is to the current project you're working on, make sure you finish it, and then use that new project in your mind as motivation to be like, oh, when I'm done with this, I get to work on the new thing. And of course, as soon as you're working on the new thing, there's this other thing on the horizon that's gonna be even better. But that's not a bad thing. It's also kind of gives you momentum and kind of keeps you going. What it shouldn't do is make you not finish things. And I've had many of those moments, but I'm getting much better at actually just finishing things.
Same here.
Whoops. No, I want to copy this whole thing.
Well, seeing you work, I think I will buy gravitysketch soon, because
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's it's people. A lot of friends of me that are not in VR are still skeptical about VR, and they ask me like, "What's the killer app?" or "What's the selling point?" And I'm like, "Well, it's going to be different for a lot of people, but for me, it's definitely the modeling tools. There's stuff that I can make so much quicker now than I could make it in 3ds Max, just because you're actually, the tools are kind of simplified and simply just like a simple action, like grabbing something and looking at it. In VR, you do it the way you would do it in the real world. You actually grab it and you're looking at it. And in 3ds Max, you got to know like 5 different menus or buttons to just do that in a smart way. So whenever I meet people that want to get into 3D, I usually, the first thing I ask is, have you thought about VR? Is that an option for you? Because if I would, if you'd be starting in 3D now, I would always be like, start in VR. You'll still need these external applications like Blender for doing UVs and stuff, but that's you can learn that. That's not, you don't need to know the entire software just to do stuff like that.
Well, it's interesting because like from the outside, if you haven't tried VR, you look at this and think, oh, those are very simple tools, and it's not there yet in terms of like technology. But I would just say to people, well, like there's such a difference between when you put a headset on and the feeling, the organic feeling that you get when you're sculpting in VR is so much different than even ZBrush. That
absolutely,
yeah, it's just a way more natural experience, and it's something you can't really explain to people. They just got to try it for themselves.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Definitely, they have to try it for themselves, and then even then they have to have some time to get. They have to have some time to get familiar to the tools and also kind of get comfortable in a VR headset. Because when I just had it, I was, a couple of hours, and that was it for me. Maybe 2 hours, before I got a little motion sick. Also, my system wasn't great at that time, and it's still not great, but it's better. But now 5 or 6 hours with breaks, of course. But it's I have no problem with it. No.
Yeah, the one part that still kind of bugs me is just there's a lot of like, I guess you could say technical things. So like moving it from VR then into a traditional package to do your unwrapping or your retopology or whatever. So I advocate a lot for sketching, like coming up with ideas, but I haven't really used it at all in any type of production setting.
No, I get that, and that's also kind of what people ask me about, like those steps where you take it from gravitysketch, and you take it into the post-processing in 3ds Max before you take it into Blender, and then you take it into Unity. That's why I just created this tutorial series actually just for that, because people are constantly asking for it. But if you're creating levels for VR, then you do want to have those steps, because you want to do UVs, you want to do materials, you want to do light baking. So it is an essential step. And I'm actually hoping that at some point, stuff like that can also happen in VR. So
Yeah.
I keep doing that. I can totally imagine that creating some UV unwrapping tools in VR could really help speed up the workflow, because you can select certain edges much quicker. And then also creating materials, like Substance Painter had a demo like years ago where you could use their software in VR, which to me would be amazing. Just being able to paint in VR, hold your object, rotate it, do whatever. But that never heard anything from it, and probably it's just hard to get it to a point where it's the performance of your PC doesn't suffer too much, something like that. But all those extra pipelines, and also like animation, the traditional type of animation, all that stuff. And it's going way too slow in my opinion, but I really love to see all that coming in VR. So you don't really need to. So you could have a model from gravitysketch just ready to go for Substance Painter, and not even having to leave VR. That would kind of be my dream. Okay. Whoops. Okay, I need to check something. Oh, sound is gone.
Not sure if you can hear me again.
Oh, wait, what's going on? Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, now I can hear you guys. What happened there?
Just said disconnected, and then took a while to reconnect.
Okay.
Just a hiccup in Discord.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably. Okay, there's a lot of detail going on here in this little wheel. I'm gonna have to kind of make it up a little bit, I think, because it's not super clear. And a lot of these other edges, much better to do that in Substance Painter. So these little bumps. Let me just see what's the overall shape here. I think it should be higher. Yeah.
How much like programming or scripting do you know for Unity? Because like that's one thing that I don't know anything about. So moving over to Unity is quite daunting.
Yeah, I don't know any scripting. I'm not a scripter, but I've got to know some basic things through. I'm using GameFlow, which is like the most simple visual scripting tool you could use, and so I could, if you have no scripting experience, I could recommend that. And then you can, it's pretty simple, and you can create like things like, just create a button you can click, and simple interaction stuff like that. But I'll be honest. I mean, the whole programming stuff, I run into that all the time, and yeah, I'd love to learn more about that. But also, there's a limited amount of time in the day, and it's one of those things that I should just one of these days like commit to. And I'm never going to be a very good programmer, but just some basic stuff, and also being able to like reverse engineer some of the stuff that I buy in assets. That's the other part. What's great about Unity is you can buy a lot of assets. So I'm working on this. We've been working for ages on this VR world called Maranga, and for that, I'm just constantly checking out assets to do, the locomotion for my character. I've just recently working on making it multiplayer. For that, I using Normcore, which is a plugin. So there's all these assets, and there's the good thing about the Unity store is you can see in the ratings, you can get a very good idea of what developers are, do a lot of help you out a lot. So I've got so much more comfortable in just having email exchanges with developers and just always starting out with, okay, I'm sorry, but I'm not a programmer, but can you help me with this? And yeah, they always do. So that's. So for me, the big thing was not being afraid to ask, because I always feel a bit stupid when I'm asking certain questions because, I'm a total noob at that stuff. But
I'm worse than you, so.
well, I doubt
a new
it, but don't. Just dive into it, and people are definitely willing to help.
It looks like we have a new person in Discord, Tank Thunderbird.
Oh,
Thunderbird.
Tank, that's a good name. Hi, Tank.
I think he's not in.
Oh.
Not in audio, just in normal chat.
Okay. Well.
I gotta switch server, guys. So thank you, and see you in the next one.
Okay, guys. See you.
Bye bye.
Thanks for joining.
You.
So I'm not sure how this wheel is. This is always kind of the danger when you're using kind of illustrations. Yeah, this is not. No, I gotta look a little bit more critical at all these shapes and the scale of these things. This is lower. And I'm not sure how it goes around the corner, but I'm just gonna put that down.
You just have a side profile, so you're gonna have to make some stuff up.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, this is I think that we have two wheels in the back, one in the front, so it's slightly, how do you say, diverges. But it's not that different as with a regular drawing. It's just like looking and constantly looking and constantly changing things. I think the wheel's a little too far out. This is one of those other things that's still a little bit annoying. I created it in symmetry, and if I want to keep it symmetrical, I have to go in edit mode to move it around.
So, yeah.
That's one of those things. And when you're zoomed out too much and you're moving stuff around, then it could cause like certain vertices to snap together. So this is still...
Right, yeah, threshold changes or whatever.
Exactly, it's the threshold that changes, yeah. So I have to be...
They don't have a... Is there like an object select, and then... Is there like a transform gizmo at all?
Yeah, there is, and I've used it now a little bit. They've added the tool belt, and if you hit the grip button and you make this movement, then you get these extra tools. And so you can paint, there's a color picker, there's a teleport, there's a randomizer. I haven't really used that one. And this is the tool to like move things very straight. So I could just select this object, and then I could select one of these axes, or like
right.
two, and then I could move it like around like perfectly. And you even have it measures the distance. So yeah, that's a tool that can be
Okay.
that can be handy if and I usually use it when I've like just a couple of minutes ago I kind of messed up and the whole thing moved to the left of the symmetry, and then I just used that to kind of move it back.
Oh yeah, okay, I remember seeing that now. Yeah.
I mean, it's still not perfect. You see this line here. It's not in the middle perfectly, but I mean that's the stuff that I don't worry about that much. Okay, let's attach this here. I think the shape is looking better, but it's still not. I think it's still not high enough. Or maybe it is high enough, but maybe the wheel should be bigger. I think that front wheel is a little larger, actually. Oh, let's do that. Something like that.
How's the weather down there?
Oh, the weather is great here. Yeah. So, as you know, I am in Curacao, and I was actually supposed to be back in Holland by now, but of course, then this whole COVID thing happened, so I decided to stay here. Which is, yeah, no, it's not a bad choice. Now the weather is great, and it feels a little weird to be inside with a VR headset sometimes.
To be quarantined.
Oh wait, your audio was a little weird. What did you say? I don't know. Maybe the audio had a hiccup again. Oh, it's a little very, yeah. The audio is very weird and kind of robotic sounding. So I'm not sure if it's coming through correctly. Let me check the chat. Tank Thunderbird needs a microphone. Yeah, cool. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with that audio. I have no idea. Let me see if it's something on my end. No, it doesn't look like it. Okay, well, I'm just gonna continue, I think. And let me know if you're back in with the audio. Yeah, so there's still some things that are not totally right here, but I'm just kind of struggling to see what it is. I think it's this edge flow on the front. Now the danger here is if I move this whole thing back, then there might be some vertices that get snapping together, but no. Make sure that you don't scale it down too much, because if you scale it down like this and I move it around, then for sure like these vertices are going to snap together, and that's going to create a mess. So lesson for me for next time is make sure you block out your shape a little better before I go editing in details like this. I still gotta learn that. But in my defense, I was talking a lot, so maybe got a little distracted. So guys, I'm not sure if the audio's back. Oh, Lee says he can hear me. Well, then I'm just gonna continue, and yeah, let me check something. And if there's anything, if the audio is not coming back, then and there's anything you want to know, let me know in the chat, and I'll make sure to check it every now and then. Okay, so those headlights. As I'm looking at this, I'm like, is that blood? That's creepy. I think they need to rescale up a little bit. And kind of move these to the outside. Yeah, I'm gonna take some liberties here, I think. I mean, there's also gonna be some stuff I'm gonna do in Substance Pager, like little edges and stuff, which would be better for me to do there. Also, like that circle and those little stripes. Maybe even the machinery you see here in the back. Although it's such a it kind of changes the outline so much that I might have to do that in 3D.
Not sure if I got my audio back.
Oh yeah, you're back. Yeah.
Okay.
Any
I think that's more on my end, I think.
Oh, okay. Maybe internet connection or something, or
Yeah, I'm not sure. Discord popped up saying it's having a hard time knowing what input device I had, so I had to go in the settings and change it.
oh, okay. Yeah, I have a friend. He works in VR as well, and he's mainly focused on audio. And he's got so much things in his whole setup. Like every time I'm trying to meet with him in VR, it takes him half an hour to make sure all his settings are correct, and you know, Windows isn't auto configuring certain things, and it's crazy. Too much options. Okay, I'm gonna close this off down like this a little bit, and I'm not gonna fill it up because it's pretty much packed with those guys sitting there. So now the question is always, what am I going to use this? Oops, see, that's one of those dangers with vertices snapping. The question is always, what am I going to use it for? So if this would be used in Unity for like a game and it have to be optimized, then I might choose to just create one of those guys and just copy it in Unity, so they would all share like UV mapping, and I would give it a rig and then position them in Unity. Of course, when I copy it in Unity, then there can be instances, and it's much better for, especially for like VR. But I think for the purposes of this tutorial, it might be better for me just to create them separately. There's a yellow thing here on the top. I'm not really sure what it is. I'm not really sure if I like it. I think it's probably just some kind of
you got Alexander in YouTube chat saying nice model, and then saying, as a beginner, can you recommend me a good tutorial?
A good gravity sketch tutorial. Well, you could look at my tutorials on my YouTube channel, but maybe for a beginner, I would say the tutorials from gravitysketch, which you can find in the software, they're very good. And also Danny Bittman has got some very good tutorials. So the gravitysketch tutorials, and look, Google Danny Bittman. He's got some.
And then again, just we talked about earlier, it's just getting into it and messing around. It's the best way.
Yeah, just get into it and just start with it and find a project that you like. This is what I want to make, and also make sure you can finish it, because it's like a psychologically important thing to finish things. If you don't finish things, then you're gonna have like a bad feeling about it, and maybe you don't want to open the software up. But as long as you finish it, you've got a thing done, and you can go on and move on to the next one.
And make those, like, make sure you're at the right appropriate level. So if it's like, we could have big ideas, but they'll be very unachievable for our level. That's what I sometimes do, is I have too big of a goal. I should just make something simple.
Oh yeah, no, that's very important. I mean, I've done that many times when I've just set the bar way too high, and then I just kind of got demotivated and frustrated with myself. So try to, do something simple, but if you do it good, and also, like some people don't like to, for me at first, I didn't really like to follow other people's tutorials because I felt like, then I'm not being very creative and I want to kind of do my own thing. But you can just start out. What I started doing at some point was just start out like trying to copy something somebody did. And then once I got over the hump of having actually something that looked like something, I would just change it to something that I like myself. And then you would, you end up with something completely different. So that could be something that could help as well.
Yeah, there's a saying that I heard somewhere, I can't remember who said it, but that learn your tools and master your craft. You gotta learn your tools first.
Yeah, that's a good saying. Yeah, I like that. Where is my? Oh, here's my menu. Okay. First thing I'm doing when this stream is done, I was gonna figure out why is this not snapping to my hand anymore. There has to be a reason. Okay, so now I'm trying to create one of these dudes, and again, it's kind of a question of how much am I going to do in Substance and what am I going to do in gravitysketch. So you have that color and you have that line going over the color. That's something that I would do in Substance Painter. So I'll just create the basic color here and maybe select the whole loop, copy it, scale it down, go down a bit.
Another question in YouTube, Sheila asks, do you have issues with the tool belt?
No, I don't really have issues with the tool belt, but I have to say that's really the only issue I have is I keep forgetting that it's the grip button, not the. I really don't use it except for this one, and that's only used when I messed things up. But what kind of issues does she have? Is it not popping up properly or something?
No, that was the extent, maybe.
Okay.
Type in the chat some more.
Yeah, well, thanks for checking the chat for me. I still have no idea what. Do you know of any tool like an overlay thing I could actually have running, being in gravitysketch? And because there's Dash, but then I have to, hit that Oculus button, and it's not really inside of gravitysketch.
Yeah, I don't know personally. I've never done like a live stream or anything. So Zebo was talking about Discord having an overlay.
Yeah, but like an overlay that I could also, because an overlay that the stream could see, I could imagine that, but like an overlay that I could see in gravitysketch. I'm not sure if I looked into it a little bit.
Okay, well, it actually looks like Sheila has joined us in audio chat.
Hey,
yeah, that doesn't work though. Get two sounds then.
Oh, no, I guess. No. So there's not really a good option for that. No, I guess. Sheila, are you still there?
Yeah, but I can't get both sounds in together now. This doesn't work.
Oh, you're getting a feedback loop. That's probably because you got a either or it's coming in through YouTube, the mute YouTube or Discord, probably. I had this.
One moment. I'll turn off the sound.
Ba-bum-bum. Yeah, I had the same thing.
I will be back in a second. Wait a minute. I'll go on the PC.
Yep.
Is he a big Mobius fan, Dirk?
Oh yeah, big Mobius fan. Yeah, and it's very weird because I got introduced to it like a long time ago by a friend, and it didn't really resonate with me that much. It was a little bit too colorful. And then a couple of years, I kind of rediscovered it, and I just discovered all the different stuff he's done, and Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
great imagine.
it's kind of stuck with me permanently for a lot of things. It's there's yeah, it's hard to explain. He's really in a kind of in a category of his own in a way.
Yeah, yeah, like just such imagination. It's work is awesome.
Yeah, and also especially in like sometimes he's got these illustrations that are like relatively simple, but they it's just a guy in a desert, something that you could basically he probably drew in like maybe 10 or 15 minutes,
Yeah,
but there's just this entire world there, like
yeah, exactly. The world, yeah, exactly. Like you said, the world is there. So the drawing might be somewhat easy for him, definitely not for me, but all his experience and thought process of his world building is so great.
yeah, and it's that like that world building that I'm still yeah, I'm so in awe of. I'm still kind of learning that. um, and there's also this element to, and I feel like I'm just kind of struggling with that still, is just the kind of the storytelling part. So it's one thing is to make an illustration of something, to say, oh, okay, yeah, this is a forest, or this is an ocean or a desert, but to kind of have the hint of a story, of like that your imagination immediately gets fired, and you're like, oh, there's something going on here. That's
That's the hard stuff.
that's the hard stuff, yeah, because that's not, you can't just learn that. That's not in the, as you said, that's not in the tools. That's in the craft. That's in the
Yeah.
um, so yeah, I've kind of yeah wanted to
Well, how do you feel about like sometimes you have an idea or you write something down, but you immediately know it's out there already. Somebody else has already thought of these things. Like, how do you deal with under like knowing that and then making it your own?
Yeah, it's, for me that is really true, because I'm also a musician, so I also like to make music, and I've only like since a couple of years started kind of writing songs just for myself, and especially with songwriting, you can't play any chords that haven't already been played like 100 times.
So
So
true.
that, yes, you recognize that, but then at a certain point, I kind of let go, because it's also, if you kind of let go of the idea that it's been done before, and you just make it and you just work on it until you're happy, then you'll end up with something that is original, because it's never going to exist exactly like that. It's always going to have
It's original in the personal touches that you brought to it.
Absolutely. I mean, there's this one type of illustration, for example, that I've seen so many times, and it's an illustration where you see somebody in a boat and you see a top view,
Oh yeah,
and
yeah,
and you see like a big fish or a big sea underneath it.
yeah.
It's kind of, you could say it's kind of a cliche, but it doesn't really matter, because I still like the idea. It still gives a sense of scale, and if somebody does it correctly, it's great. And it's the same with movies.
Yeah.
I can still really enjoy a western, even though I know exactly the plot
The
and
formula, yeah.
the formula, and
Unless you look at Westworld, that's completely different.
who?
Westworld.
Oh,
Westworld.
Westworld. Oh, yeah, but Westworld is so interesting, because they take all these elements that you already know, like from westerns, and then they do something completely new with it. So this is also, I think, a way you could play with how you say, tropes, or like cliches, um, like what, in a way, I guess,
Well, but Westworld also went into some very heavy uh
meta.
thought, like who you are as a person and what does it mean to be a person or alive.
Absolutely, it's like very philosophical.
Yeah.
So you can, yeah. So the background setting is maybe like, a lot of the imagery is like somewhat familiar, and then there's this twist, and it only makes it more interesting because it kind of sucks you in, and you have a certain expectation, but then it's totally different.
Wait. How do you connect these things, these green things, to the yellow thing?
Oh yeah. So for these eyes, I'm not connecting them. I'm actually going to keep them separate. Sometimes I choose to make it from the same geometry, like the head and the body. They're just from one part. But for the eye, I would just take a little cube, go into edit mode, then at the subdivision level, so it becomes sphere. Then I just delete the back face, so that becomes straight. And then I select those, move them in, and I get a little eye. So I'm not going to connect them. I'm just going to keep them separate because there's, otherwise I have to do all these extra loop cuts, and I don't really want to do that. So I'll keep them separate. And what you can do in gravitysketch is just select them if you want to and group them. So now they are effectively attached. But that just makes it easier to work with. Oh, I'm struggling a bit with this. See, now one of the problems is, and if I move it around, so that shape is not going to be. See, I move this, and this shape still has symmetry mode, but the eye is separate, so it has global symmetry. So I just got to remember how I change that. If I turn off, the way you do that, just turn off the global symmetry. And then it is two different objects, but that's fine because the eyes were kind of done. So group it all together, and now I can move the whole thing around. So this was something I was struggling with a bit in the beginning as well. Let me just put it up there and see how my scale is holding up.
All right. Well, I gotta get going to work.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Lee, thanks so much for joining, and I'll hopefully see you next time. I'm not sure how long. Yeah, I'll send you a message when I do another one.
Okay, sweet.
Cool.
All right. Take care.
Take care. See you later.
Bye.
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 So was it Sheila?
Yeah.
And thanks. So are you working with gravitysketch as well, or?
I was just following your tutorial the other day, and I thought, oh my God, he's doing another live stream. I want to see him.
Oh, cool. Yeah. So how do you like gravitysketch so far?
Well, it doesn't crash. That's the problem with the tool belt. It completely crashed a few times after that I installed it.
Oh, really? Oh, no. I haven't had any problems. I haven't had any problems like that. Let me take a little sip of my tea here. No, although I do need I do need to get a better computer. I have a.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's the thing. Oh, it's on.
No, that might just be a bug in gravitysketch.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can always join their Discord. They have a good Discord channel.
Yeah, I joined that, but then after I tried 3 times, it suddenly started normally. So I thought, well,
Oh yeah. Oh, okay, that's what always happens.
So from whom is the nice picture in the background?
That's a picture from Möbius. Möbius, that's his artist name. He isn't alive anymore. His real name is Jean Giraud. He's a French artist, and I don't know if you know him, but you'd look him up. He's excuse me, one of my favorite artists, and his style is it's very colorful, kind of science fiction looking stuff. It's
yeah. Looking it up now.
Yeah, I think it's amazing. I like it a lot better than all of that other science fiction stuff that's very bleak and grim and dark. And I mean, it's nice also, but
Yeah, I also liked a lot Ravian. It's called differently in French, but I'm not sure. Valerian or something?
oh, Valerian, yeah.
Yeah, and Dutch
Yeah.
is Ravian.
Ja, precies.
Yeah. So that's also, it used to be really, really colorful, and then it changed to the grim, bleak comic.
Oh, that shit, the style changed.
A lot.
Oh, that's funny. That they thought they had to. It would be more commercial or something.
Or he just smoke less weed or something.
Yeah. Oh, that could definitely have a big impact. Yeah, that's not always a good idea for artists. It kind of.
How are you going to do the letters later on? I won't be able to follow the entire stream, so I'm curious. How are you going to put letters on there?
Yeah, well, I'm probably not going to be able to finish it, so I'll probably do that in a second stream. What I want to do is once this is done, I'll create some, do a little bit in 3ds Max. So I have to create some UVs, do some UV mapping, and then do it in Substance Painter. Do you know Substance Painter?
I don't have money for that sort of thing. I just play around with Blender.
Well, I believe Substance Painter has now has a subscription, like a free, how do you say, trial period of 2 months because of COVID. So
Cool.
so that's. But I really love Substance Painter, and so like the purple stuff and that kind of the weathered paint and the letters, and probably also like that machinery you see here on the back. So I'm just going to create like some simple geometry. And then in Substance Painter, with normal mapping and just some texture painting, I'll just create some fake like wires and stuff like that. Yeah. No, I in my tutorial series, there's also a Substance Painter part to it. So for me, that workflow, gravitysketch and Substance Painter, I really love it. The UV part is kind of boring, but you can do this in Blender. There's actually this guy who followed my tutorials who substituted the 3ds Max part for Blender. So it is.
Which part I was still struggling with because the program crashed so many times. I was still working on the beginner's part of the tutorial.
Oh yeah, no, it's computer crashes are not very good for to stay motivated. I know all about it from the past. Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Dirk. I'm gonna make some dinner now.
Okay, well, eet smakelijk, I would say.
Dankjewel.
And
Thanks for the live stream, and I will definitely will look up the rest of it later.
cool. Talk to you later, maybe.
Bye bye.
Bye bye. Okay, well, so this was the live stream. We had some people joining through voice chat on the Discord, which was fun. I do think I was a little less focused on the modeling part because of it, because I did make some mistakes and I'm seeing some things that I'm not too happy with. But it was a good experiment, and I'm just going to do a second live stream where I'm going to work on this model a little bit more, and maybe even just also live stream doing UVs in 3ds Max and Substance Painter. Substance Painter has got an automatic UV built in now, so I could also do that. So I won't have to bore you with all the UV unwrapping because it's a bit boring. Okay, so that's it for now. Ending the live stream, and everybody that was watching, thanks so much. Goodbye.